You're listening to All Talk Radio, Las Vegas, Nevada. Views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the host and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of alltalkradio.net.
So I'm going to let you lead the way on the veteran stuff. I don't like them anyway, so it didn't.
Standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day will never come again, as my spirit's guiding me to a place where I am free to be all that I can be. Here I am.
And welcome to Synchronicity and Your Life. I am Jane McGuire, and co-hosting with me today and every Tuesday is Elena Risto. And
I'm here.
Yes, you are. and we'll get into I Am Here later.
Yeah.
And that is her song that brings us into the show. So
Well,
that's
I have to say it's my song and Jim Fisher's.
right. Well, okay.
Yeah.
But you are
Gotta give him
singing it.
credit. I am.
You are singing it.
I
So
am.
if people want to download that whole song, where can they go to get it?
Actually, right at the moment, nowhere.
No. Okay, then. So you can only hear the
But
song
we're working
here.
on it. We're working on it. So,
Okay.
we're working on it. I'm going to work. Trying
Okay.
to get it up on my website. And
Good.
we're
Good.
back to that Mercury retrograde
Oh my
conversation.
gosh.
We're
You
not
know,
going
we've
there.
had, and I know a lot of you live outside of Las Vegas, and we've had some events here. On Sunday, horrible shooting. Two of our police officers, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, were shot and killed. One actually survived the ride to UMC, only to die in surgery. And then these two crazy, stupid cowards. I
How
don't
do you
want
really feel about it,
I
Jane?
don't even really want to give their names.
No, don't. No,
You know,
don't. No, no. I
these
don't wanna
two
give 'em
people
that
that thought they
credit.
were doing something amazing ran over to Walmart, and there was another shooting where they shot Josh Wilcox, who had a concealed carry permit and was actually confronting these two wackos.
Yeah, he tried to block them
He
from
did.
shooting the policeman.
He did, and he's actually a hero. You know,
He is,
so
and he passed also.
yes, he did. He
So there
did.
were 5 people that died.
Right,
The 2 police officers, Wilcox, and then the couple
the two crazies.
who
Yeah.
absolutely believed what they were doing.
Right. And interestingly enough, of course, this happened the Sunday before Father's Day. So unfortunately, these families are going to be spending their first Father's Day without their 2 officers. And I don't know if Mr. Josh Wilcox was a father. I don't really
I don't know. I
anything.
haven't heard.
So that's, I just wanted to also say there's been a couple of vigils in town. There's Las Vegas is definitely rallying around their police department. And so I just want to take the time to say that here at All Talk, and specifically Synchronicity and Your Life, we wish the families well. I feel a lot of compassion for you. We wish you healing. I know that this time is very, very tough. Losing someone in a violent manner like that is beyond. It's even in my tip days. I had a couple of violent calls like this, and it's really, really traumatic on the family. And so if you're here in Las Vegas, the Albertsons shopping centers, you can donate money at the checkout to help the families. And there's, I think if you go to the lvmpd.com, there's a couple of links up there, and some of the news stations online, have their links online.
And they have had several events at the pizza parlor. It was a pizza.
Yeah,
What was
pizza.
it?
It was CC's
Chachi's or
Pizza.
something.
CC's
CC's
Pizza on
Where is
Nellis.
that?
It's on the not far from my old work, actually.
Oh, yeah,
It's-
that's right. You and
yeah.
I had that conversation.
Yes, we
'cause
did.
She called me up and she said, I don't want to get my ego involved here, but it happened after I moved out. Do you
Yeah.
think I was helping make sure it didn't happen?
Right, and that's and
Things like that cross your mind
they
when
do.
something sudden like that
They
happens.
do, and your response was great. The energy there had to shift. So, but CC's Pizza on Nellis and Stewart. It was a big plaza there, and that's not the greatest part of town, but certainly that particular command, the Southeast Area Command, I believe that's the Bolden Command. They're actually that's a tough area.
It's a tough area.
Very tough
But
area.
you know, it makes me think of a couple that years and years ago that moved to Yachats, Oregon, which is a little tiny town in a place called Newport, right on the Oregon coast.
Oh, beautiful! I lived in Oregon for 9 years. That's a
Right,
gorgeous
and
area.
they moved there. They moved there with their children,
Uh-huh.
and they were moved out of some highly populated area. I can't remember what it was. And they were broken into, and there was I don't remember exactly what happened, but it was something very equally as traumatic. One of them may have passed, you
Yeah,
know, and
those-
so you can't hide. It's like you
No,
can
you
live.
can't.
You can be in a situation where your chances are better that you won't.
Mm-hmm.
But if crosses your path, you just have to.
Well, and then there was
just have
something
to
on
deal with
there was
it.
something on the news today
And it's
about
hard.
something in Oregon, a shooting at a high school there. I don't know have all the details. I know we're not here to break the story, but something like that happened. Oregon also had Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh.
Oh yeah, I remember the Bhagwan.
Yeah,
There was a
and
whole
then
song
and
thing
then
that
Mahanad
happened on
Sheila
that.
poisoned a whole town and with salmonella. Yeah, that was lovely. So Oregon, I mean, every state can attract people. Oregon at that time, I was living there when that was going on. It just had this way of attracting people with very different belief systems and different actions and things that wound up becoming criminal.
Well, and I think that this really speaks to, and then I want to move on to,
Yeah, absolutely,
to
we'll
what's
move on.
coming up.
Right.
But I think this really speaks to, because people ask me all the time, you know, what can we do to stop the war? What can we do to save Mother Earth? What can we do? What you can do is start working on this part,
Yes.
the inside. If you can stop the war in
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it because some of the trainings I've been in, we have been talking about it. Some of the most violent demonstrations I ever saw were the peace demonstrations of the 60s, you know?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you truly want to stop this on the outside, work on the inside of
You-
yourself.
Right. And then
Where's
when-
the anger? Where's the, you know, because this couple was obviously, they had their perspective and they believed it.
And they're entitled to their perspective, but you're not entitled to take
But
it
that's
to a
not the
point where it
truth.
becomes violent. Exactly.
No, it wasn't the truth, but it's
Right.
their perspective. And so to anybody out there that thinks that you understand something and you're adhering to something really like with roots in the earth, just be open
Yeah.
that there might be something different.
But then they have to admit that they might be wrong.
Well,
And that's where you get
That's
into
a whole
ego.
nother show.
That is a whole other show. So today we're going to switch it up right now, and because we could talk about that
oh,
forever.
yeah, we don't want to do that.
No.
We got a nice day coming up.
We do, and we wanted to talk a little bit about synchronicity and your father, and how fathers
father, too.
and my father too, right? Because he's actually a big part of what I do now, and so. So it's if you want to call in and share a brief story, we are hoping to get quite a few callers tonight. So let me give out that number. Get your pens ready. Okay, good. Got them. All right. It's 702 609 7626 is our call in. And you can also call in on Skype, and you can go into Skype, and in the search bar, you can type in All Talk Radio. That's the only way we can do two lines. So please be patient. And if you've got if you've got a story, please make it. Oh, do we have a caller already? No?
Oh, great. Now you're hearing things.
Now I'm hearing, well, yeah, but that's what I do.
All the time.
So please feel free to call in and share a story about how your dad or grandfather or your father figure, and we're going to include stepdads in this.
Right. Or anybody that stepped in. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people, some people weren't raised with fathers. They were
Right.
raised by a single mother.
Right.
Some of them, they had somebody stepped in and did just the right thing
Right.
that they needed to have at that
Yeah.
moment.
Uncles
Feel
might
that.
step in, or women might develop that masculine side. The men may develop that feminine side, if you have a single father. And there's different challenges on both sides.
Right.
So
Right.
it can definitely be very, very influential on a child's life. I know my dad was very influential in my life.
And just so everybody knows, if you call in and you tell us your story, we're gonna cut you off
Right.
basically, and we'll respond to it. But we want to make room for people to call in.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
So feel
so-
free to call in and chat with us. Also, at the bottom of the hour at 5:30 our time, we will be dedicating a song to all dads.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a song that you wrote, and you have a video of the song.
Yes,
And-
that they can see.
Right. That they can
That they
see,
can
and it's been played over at the Henderson Vet Center.
Actually, when I released it, it was dedicated to the service,
Right.
men and women of the service.
It's a beautiful
Yeah.
song, and so we will be doing that at the bottom of the hour.
We'll
and
talk more about it then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so my dad, I'm the youngest of three, and my dad he was a very positive man, very upbeat, had definitely that traditional Irish sense of humor. I mean, and the Irish eyes. You know how people say Irish eyes are smiling?
Yeah, that's a song.
See?
I have to get her when I can. You know?
But he did that. He could make his eyes glint. I can do that too.
I know.
But but my eyes disappear. But he was definitely a man. He was very confident building for me and for my brother and sister, and very, very funny and upbeat. And you know, he's the one, as we discussed last week, my getting epilepsy. I got it from him. Before he died, I was able to tell him that I never held him responsible
That's
for
great.
that. Yeah, that
That's
was
a healing moment for both of you.
that was a real gift to him from me, and I look almost exactly like my dad. So it was a very healing moment, like you said, and I was very glad I got to say that to him. And actually, I had my brother and sister to thank for that. They flew me down to Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Yeah. So Dad was I wouldn't say workaholic, but he work at 8 in the morning and home at 6 at night. But during tax season, from January to April, he would bring the work home and that kind of stuff. And he definitely made it a point to get involved with all of us kids and give us all different skill sets. So I have to say, and I think what I do today, as far as wanting to do things with the veterans and active military, that is because of him. It's that's because he was a veteran, and it's just my way of honoring him.
Well, my dad was Finnish.
Well, okay, story over. That's a finished story.
Jeez. Oh, that's a groaner. I've heard too many. You had a groaner on earlier.
I did.
What
What'd you
was
think?
it?
It was if a medical marijuana company goes into business with another company, is it then a joint venture?
Ba-dum-bum. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Stand-up comedy today. That's it. No, my dad was real influential too, and it sounds like we were both pretty lucky because they were around. I don't remember having a deep conversation with my dad, but we had this intuitive connection that just I would spend hours with him, working outside. I remember one of the most touching moments. I was thinking about it today when I was driving in, that because my sister, he would work all day from like 8 to 6.
And he was a chiropractor?
No. He was managed a hardware store.
Oh, okay.
And then he was a drummer because my mom and dad had their swing band. That's how I learned to sing all the old music. But he would come home and the pattern went like this. He would come home. He had to get wood in because we only had wood heat on the farm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had wood heat. So I'm fine when I know how to do all that stuff. It's
Right.
normal to me. But he would spend some hours out in the woodshed, chopping wood and kindling and bringing it in. And then he'd feed my sister a bowl of ice cream, which that was my favorite part of the night because I got
So you got to eat it too.
I got to eat it too. But it was more doing things together than actual speaking together.
And that's the same philosophy my father had, was that
Yeah.
it's more important to spend time and cultivate that relationship and spend time and money on your family if you can.
See, I don't think my dad had that kind of background because, as I think I was telling you last night, that when he was 4, which would have been 1914, his father left and actually moved on the other side of the valley, or over the other side
His
of the
father
hill.
left his mother?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
they split. And she actually got a divorce in 1919.
And see, that is
Women
so
did
unheard
not
of.
have the right to vote, and I've got the old divorce decree, and if you look at it, it's really interesting because it says she gets the wagon, the chickens, the 6 cows, the acreage,
She got everything.
she pretty much, I don't know how she did it,
Yeah.
but she got it.
My great-grandmother got divorced around that time also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But they didn't talk about it much.
No,
that
no,
was
it
not
was
a
a
good thing
sin.
to do. But the interesting thing was he didn't have the 2-parent family to model after.
Right.
He
And this
didn't have that.
Right. And that was the norm in those days.
Right. And so, but the one thing that I will always remember is that one night he came in and it was raining, like it usually does in the Pacific Northwest for 9 months out of the year, the western side anyway. He came in and I heard this noise and he was just kind of standing there and he had his barn hat on and his old coat. And he was looking there watching me, and I looked down, and he was very intuitive and very creative. And he had taken this block of wood, and somehow, something about it, it had the shape of a car. Naturally had the shape of a pickup, and he figured out how to hammer. I mean, this thing was heavy, too. You couldn't
Right,
this
right.
isn't something that you could, But he came in, and he just kind of put it down and rolled it across the floor at me. And I must have been 10 or 12 years old. But that sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
And what got me was, now, it probably got burned up a long time ago, but what got me is that he took the time to do that.
There was
That's what touched me.
there was a tradition in our family, and I grew up in San Francisco, so we had a lot of different ways to do things. But anytime we reached, my brother, my sister, myself reached 7th grade, Dad would take us to, and we all did it only once, by the way. But he would take us down to Ghirardelli Square, and it was just the child and Dad, and it was a hot fudge sundae, or it was whatever you wanted. But you were in 7th grade, and that was Dad daughter time, and it was very special.
Yeah,
Very
it was.
special.
It really
Yeah.
was. And the same is true sitting around the table eating ice cream with my sister, who was
Yeah.
very ill. He would feed her ice cream. And I think if I would say what was the biggest thing I learned from my dad is real compassion.
Yeah.
I don't know many men that would go to work, at least in my life, that would go to work from at 8 in the morning till 6 at night, come home, make sure there was enough wood on the fire, come in. And my sister, because she was incontinent, he would come home and take care of that. I mean, he would come
Wow.
home, and she was older than I was, so this is like lifting a grown human.
Right.
I mean, an adult.
And he must have had a wonderful mother, because this was
No, she was pretty tough.
oh, so
she
he
raised
had-
5 kids milking cows on a farm.
so he mastered all of that caretaking
Yeah.
skills as a
And
child.
he just did it. I could see him. He would just shrug his shoulders and
so
just do it.
so then isn't this interesting, because then you were put into the role of caretaker as a child, and it had a different effect on your life than it did on his life.
Well, I don't know. He never talked about it. He just did it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to this day, I mean, to have that kind of compassion. And I just heard another story where of another father that would come in with a cerebral palsy child.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that's hard.
And it's to come home and do that. And you just do it.
Yeah.
You didn't think about it. You didn't sit
Yeah.
around. You didn't have time to think about if you wanted to do this or not. It just had to be done.
Yeah, we were. My dad was about setting goals and getting them done. I remember, actually, my college graduation. It was graduated from Willamette University in Salem, Oregon. So I'm familiar with the weather patterns of the Northwest.
Oh, yeah. Especially that side of the mountains.
Right. And it was funny, because I had insisted that my grandmother, my mom's mother, come to the graduation. She was 83 years old. But for me, it was a special day. I was afraid she wasn't going to live much longer, and she lived for 3 more years. So, but I got my diploma, and afterwards there's the family pictures and everything, and my dad came up to me and gave me a big hug, and he said, "You did this." He said, "You did all the work. You attended the classes. This is your degree." And it was, he paid for college too, so I didn't owe anything after that. But that was a huge moment for me.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
just him even saying that.
The huge moment for me was there was a time my mother pretty much ran the house.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, my dad would do anything. I noticed that if they were having an argument, we all hated the day before a vacation because the house, according to her, had to be spotless.
Yep.
And so I noticed he spent a lot of time out in the woodshed and out in the barn and out at the shop and whatever. It's just staying clear.
And let her do her thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was trapped in the house having to do all that because I was a girl, right? So, but one of the things that I think I will always remember, and I was in my 30s at that time, and my mother was very clear about what she would and what she wouldn't do. And it was a situation that my husband and I at that time owned a company, and we had a party, a Christmas party or something that was going on. And everybody always asked about my folks because they'd been playing dance music for years, polkas, schottisches, swing music, all of that. And I came up with this brilliant idea, that, wow, well, let's pay them to come and play for an hour, and they can come have Christmas with us. And it was a small company, so everybody was kind of family anyway. There were friends in it and everything. And I called my mom up, and I said, gosh, there's this you guys could get paid, and you could play a little music. And my mother didn't even hesitate. She said, no, I've been in on these deals before. she said, this is not going to work because people expect you to do a certain thing in a certain way, and I'm not going to do it. And I was stunned.
Wow.
And I just kind of hung up the phone, and I actually have to say I had a little meltdown. And it probably was one of my first learnings about my mom, to really understand I didn't like everything that she did.
Yeah.
So fast forward to many years later, probably about 10 years later. And one day my dad looked at me and he said, you know something? That was a bad decision. I should have stopped her. That was a very healing moment for me because he always just kind of went along to keep the peace. But to have that acknowledgement meant it was huge.
I think it means a lot to daughters to have their dads acknowledge something. It's not an easy world. It's a man's world, you know, but it's a man's world because we let it be that way.
Well, I think you've opened up a door on something there because I've had this particular conversation. Sorry, George. Had this conversation.
We're just dismissing the man
Yeah,
here.
you're one of the girls today. So I've had this conversation in the last couple of days with both males and females about, you know, if you want your daughters to do something, if you want to wonder why they keep making the mistakes about the guys they get, or they keep getting into these situations where they just can't figure it out, who modeled for them what they deserved,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So if your dad treats you with respect and honor, or if they watch you, that your dad treat your mother with respect and honor, and you grow up with that, that's what you expect. If you don't grow up with that,
Yeah.
it took me a while because my
Yeah.
dad was gone so much, and he wasn't around a lot. You know, I never doubted that my parents loved me. I never doubted that he loved me. And there wasn't any abusive situation. They just weren't available a lot between that and a handicapped child and two jobs, and it's tough.
It is
It's tough.
tough. And I grew up with a different spectrum. My father was a very well-respected attorney in town, and my mother stayed home for a long period of time and then decided back in 1971 she wanted to go to law school. So all of a sudden I went from having a mom that was there all the time to a mom that was there part-time to, you know, easy fried dinners at night and all that stuff. And then my mother was always brilliant anyway, you know, and so is my dad. But then all of a sudden, you know, my identity is wrapped up. And remember, I'm a kid at this time. My identity is wrapped up in what my parents do for a living. And as a litigator, my mom actually did pretty well. She got a reputation around town, but times were tough. Women with gray hair were not acknowledged in the court system back then. They were considered old hags and, you know, all that
Well,
stuff.
They probably weren't acknowledged much at all anyway,
There were not a lot of female
No.
attorneys back in the 70s in San Francisco.
let alone judges.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So she got into a completely male-dominated field and actually wound up becoming the research attorney for retired Justice Benson for the California Court of Appeals.
Wow.
And yeah, so she actually did really well, but it's still very difficult being the daughter of two very bright attorneys. That's a little intimidating.
Well, that's how you looked at it.
You know, I was little.
Well, yeah, you know,
You know?
And my mom went to work when I was a year old, and pretty much emotionally didn't come back.
Yeah, well, you know,
I
that's
mean,
hard.
that was her reaction to all
Yeah,
the stress between
sure.
my sister and the convulsions and having to work and not having a whole lot of money, and yeah. So she never came back. So I didn't grow up with the 50s model of two cars in the garage, mom stays
Yeah.
home and makes cookies. You know, I didn't have
Yeah,
that.
my mom did that until I got into 7th grade.
No,
and then
that wasn't around.
Yeah, but it's and I have to say though that my dad completely supported my mom entering the law field, and they were in two different areas of law, which was a good thing.
Well, that's interesting
Yeah.
because that means that women in your family were supported to be who they were
Yes.
more in a way than some
yes.
people.
Yes, and my brother actually wound up marrying an attorney. So, and my sister, she's the odd one out. She married a doctor.
Oh, well, you, can't-
So, but we won't hold that
you
against
got that
her.
all covered, don't you?
Well, but she also raised a doctor and a lawyer. My oldest niece is a doctor, and the middle niece is a lawyer, and I think my nephew is a financial planner.
Well, and interestingly enough, while you bring that up, is that since my folks had a band and my mom was the piano player and dad was the drummer, the music in those days, you know, women were the singers
Oh,
and
right.
they could play a little. I mean, there was that kind of hierarchy
Right.
in music as well.
Sure.
So she was a real predominant person in the whole band thing. So I grew up. I never had that issue of the glass ceiling.
Right.
People would talk about the glass ceiling, and I'd look up and
It's
go,
not
"Where?
glass,
What's
right.
that? What's that all about?"
Well,
You
and
know,
then
I
in
don't
the
know what it is.
60s, though, that really changed. You know, late
I never
50s
had
with,
any
with
issue.
Motown and
yeah,
all
I
that,
never
yeah.
had an issue with it. I didn't have a belief about it one way or the other, so
Yeah.
I didn't draw that kind of lesson to me. So I didn't. That wasn't an issue for
Yeah,
me.
no, when Women's Lib came out, it was, I'm sure you remember all that.
Oh yeah.
It was,
Sorry.
it just wasn't, I mean, it was, my dad already believed that my mom was intelligent and could do things. And, you know, my sister did some stuff in the 70s that women did. I didn't do that. But it just was that belief, like you said, was already kind of in my family. Well, of
Yeah.
course you can do that.
So see,
you know.
there's the importance of what your family models for you.
Yeah.
So if you have a party missing, and the other party that's left to help raise you can't replace that, or that hole
Yeah.
isn't replaced, then you end up with people that are going through life trying to, how do I fill that hole in
Yeah.
myself? Because
Yeah.
I don't know what's in there. I don't know what's there.
Well, and interestingly enough, there were my mom and I were very similar when I was growing up, and then there was a big, as is the case, a divergence. You know, but I wound up
Mothers and daughters is what it's called.
exactly, exactly. But you know, I wanted the blow dryers to just come out, the curling irons and all that, the makeup,
Yeah.
and you know, and I wanted to be a part of all of that. I mean, I was lucky to get my mom to put lipstick on, and she just wasn't going to have any of it. I wasn't going to wear makeup. It was horrible. We all see how well that worked, you know. But I just wanted to go this whole feminine side, and that is a side of my mother that I never saw it from her. She wore classic clothes to work, suits and things like that, very classic, but she was not feminine. Just wasn't. So that was my grandmother, actually, her mother.
So I think this is interesting because it shows that the importance that fathers in stepping into that male energy, not in a gender sort of way,
Right.
but the positive. When we talk about alternative healing, we're always talking about male and female energy, and it doesn't have to do with gender. It has to do with the quality of it.
It has to do, right, because men traditionally, you know, they're very goal oriented. Sit down, get the problem done, you know, it's overdone. Just tell me what the problem is and I'll fix it. Women tend to be, I'm not going to bash us all, we tend to be more emotional. We tend to get George.
George is back in the picture.
Sometimes we overanalyze.
I apologized to him earlier because I sent him in the song, and I said, we just decided this last night. But I'm sorry, but we're female. That's it. I'm
That's
gonna fall
right.
back
That's
on
right.
that, you know?
And we do get to change our minds.
We do.
We do,
Part
absolutely.
of it's in the blueprint.
Right, right. So, and we tend to be, I think, as a whole, more nurturing.
Yeah, I think that's our value, is because we network better. I mean, I was just listening to Tim McGraw talk about men and women. And you know, Tim McGraw, the country singer.
The country
yeah.
singer, right.
Yeah, and he was talking about, of course, he had 3 little girls. He said, if you want to learn about women, have a wife and 3
Right.
little girls.
Absolutely.
Right? You know? But he was talking about, he says, you know, women like to talk about things, and just because they're complaining about something, my tendency is I just want to get in there and fix it.
Right.
He says, but that's not what they want you to do. They just want you to listen.
And that goes back to actually something that I had on the old synchronicity that we brought up. It's not about the nail. Have you seen that?
No.
If you ever get a chance to go on YouTube and type in "It's Not About the Nail," it hits.
Say that slowly, because people are
It's-
listening are going, okay, I got to go see
yeah,
that.
it's not about the nail, and it is a 5-minute video that perfectly encapsulates the way men and women talk. And I
okay,
don't,
now I got to go see
yeah,
it.
it's hilarious. And I've actually used it in some sessions, and the women have said, oh, that's exactly how he is. And I've shown it to men, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly how she is.
Yeah.
And it is about, we do put emotion into it, and we do complain, and that needs to stop. But we also have to
A little.
analyze it. We have to analyze it, though. We have to look at it from
Yeah.
every possible angle, and then we'll fix it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, right. If we feel like
Yeah,
it.
see, George is over there nodding again. Yeah, got it. So we're at the bottom of the hour. Let's talk about the song, because this song was originally written. I've been involved with an independent film, and they came to me and my songwriting partner and said, we need a song that's about love that doesn't stop. You know, wives and husbands that stick with each other through, you know, because this particular movie, the poor lead character is, I can't remember how many times he has a chance to die in this movie, but he doesn't.
Tries
But
numerous times.
She hangs in there with him. So we wrote this song. And then it came up that by the time we got the song done, they had changed it enough, the ending enough where they wanted to put it, that it didn't quite fit. So I said, well, that's all right. We still own the song. And then several years later, my music producer and I, and he says, you know, it's such a good song. Let's do something with it. Let's make it a video where you can see it. If you go to LaineyRistosings.com.
Okay.
And that's LainiRistosings.com. That's my music website. You can go to, I think it says there's a tab that says video, and you can go there. And we did it around welcoming the people home from the service, from the military. And this song really can fit to anything. It can
Yeah, it
be
can.
a father singing to his daughter. It can be a daughter singing to the father. It can be a brother to brother, sister to sister. It's about that ongoing love that just never stops. Nothing is going to stop it because it's much deeper than romantic love. And
It
it's,
is.
You know.
So with that, we should probably play the song.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So-
what's the name of the song?
It's called I'll Be Here For You. So imagine, close your eyes and imagine either having your father sing this to you or you singing this to your father.
This is a beautiful song. I'll Be Here For You, dedicated to all fathers. Sung by Lainey Risto.
There's no question in my mind. I will walk through sands of time with you. And if our story seems to end, I'll turn the page, write new words, start it all again. I'll be here for you when the night is through. I will be the light that guides you through the dark. And if you lose your way, I will call your name. When you get here, your heart will know the truth. I'll be here for you. If the world tears us apart, I'll remember who you really are. I'll treasure everything you know. Now tend your soul, let you grow, hold you in my heart. I'll be here for you when the night is through. I will be the light that guides you through the dark. And if you lose your way, I will call your name. When you get here, your heart will know
I'm really hoping that gets a lot of likes. That's
Yeah.
a beautiful song.
It's really moving. I had a chance to sing it down on the Fremont Street.
Oh, right. I wasn't able to make it
they
to
did-
that.
Yeah, they did the Breaking the Chains
Yeah.
of Human Bondage.
Yeah.
And it was great standing down on Fremont Street and hearing that come through all the speakers.
That must have been amazing. Is there a video of that? Do you think?
No, probably not.
No?
I don't think
No?
so. I don't know. I've got some pictures.
Okay.
But I don't have, so.
So
maybe we
that's-
could do a slideshow.
So that song is not anywhere right now where anybody can download it or listen to it?
It's sitting on radioairplay.com, which used to be Django.com.
But it's not on YouTube?
I think it is, but George and I were just talking, and I'm gonna find it so he can put it up on the website.
Okay.
So we'll make that available. If you're on Facebook, you can go to our Synchronicity Facebook page.
Yes.
Which is facebook.com/synchronicity
Synchronicity and your life.
Yeah, and we post things up there, so
Right. You could download it there. We'll put a link to it there, maybe.
we could put it there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll let you know, but go and like the page.
Yeah.
And we'll update you
Right.
as we go.
Yes, we do have a Facebook page, Synchronicity: and your life. And do feel free to call in if you have a story to share about your dad or a father figure or about being a dad. And the number is 702-609-7626. And then you can also reach us at Skype, and you just type in All Talk Radio into the search bar in Skype. So we've got open lines right now, so feel free to call and talk to us about your dad or being a dad or any of that neat stuff. Now, we should probably talk about the most obvious thing. What do we get a dad for Father's Day?
Not soap on a rope.
No, no, and not a tie.
Not a tie.
You know, yeah.
I hear a lot of guys say that they just want a day to do whatever they want. If they want to sit
Yeah.
in front of the TV. Oh, George, now we got
George
George's
is
attention
listening.
again.
And,
yeah.
you know, that's what I do for Mother's Day is, my kids and I'm like, I just want to be able to do what I want to do and not worry about you guys. But then we wound up going out to dinner. But yeah, a day, I think maybe a massage, getting him a massage.
No, I think a woman would want that.
There are men that get massages.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. What
Yeah.
would you want? What do you want, George?
Oh, God, you're going to bring him into this?
Yeah.
World peace.
Oh, please. Well, for George, that starts within.
And if that
Yeah.
doesn't work, some electronic gadget.
Okay, right. So a
some
tablet.
electronical gadget.
A tablet, yeah. The new
Yeah.
iPhone.
He's got tablets.
Right.
I mean,
But,
if you
we're
want the-
we're also talking about, there's not everybody can afford those things. So for the child that's 10 years old and doesn't have the mother that can go out and buy the tablet, what do they do?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I think that handmade something. I
all-
mean, I
yeah.
still have all the stuff from my kids.
I have their handmade Christmas ornaments from when they were in preschool. I have their handprints still.
And I noticed
Yeah.
that my ex-husband, I would go down into his shop and he had a bulletin board, and I would see things that he
Yeah.
would tack up there.
Yeah.
Pictures,
Actually,
pictures.
there's a really neat thing we did for my daughter's graduation, and this would be a really cool thing for kids to do with their dads. It's called Smilebox. You can go online. It's a free program to download, and you put pictures in. And you can create a slideshow. You can edit it and add captions. And we actually added a video that George took of Natalie 2 years ago doing, not lip syncing, but like pretending to play the guitar, sitting where you're sitting. And it was actually on my birthday. It was on the old music show. And it was Natalie doing More Than a Feeling by Boston.
Wow.
And we sneaked that into her graduation video. She didn't know we were going to do that. So, if the mom...
Nice job, guys.
Right? So if the mom wanted to spend some time with the child, somebody younger than 18, and put a bunch of pictures together and turn it into a video, you then can just have the father over to the computer. It's really kind of fun, and it doesn't cost anything.
Well, and the other thing is I was just sitting here and thinking, it's really about the connection.
Yeah.
So, how many times do dads get asked, what do you want? What can I do with you? What is something we could do together? For,
Yeah.
because those are the memories that stick. It's like that silly little block of wood made out of, that turned into a truck
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah. I
You know,
laid
that's-
cement with my dad and pulled weeds.
You remember that, though?
I do. I remember laying the cement. That
Right?
wasn't so fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of people sitting around going, why do we get them? And they try and guess and they don't know. And, well, why don't you know? Is it because there isn't enough connection there?
Yeah, and there's
Or-
actually there's I have a story that illustrates that.
Oh, go for it.
I got pregnant with my youngest a month after my mom died. And my mom had been instrumental in getting me the doctor here in town and, all that stuff. And then, so I got pregnant with Stephanie and I told Dad, and he was going to fly me to San Francisco to see his client who was an OBGYN and one of the best in the nation and yada, yada, yada. He didn't know anything about the doctor that Mom had gotten me for my oldest, Natalie. He knew nothing because the role in our family was us kids talked to Mom and Mom told Dad everything. So he was caught up. He didn't talk to us directly once we got to be over a certain age. It was Mom's job. And so after that, I told him, I said, no, it's okay, Dad. I have the same doctor that Mom got me for Natalie. And I could just hear it in his voice because he was in San Francisco. I was here in Las Vegas. You could just, oh, okay, Mom got you the doctor. Okay, then everything's all right. But other than that, he didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. I was just sitting here thinking back on that Tim McGraw situation again. That maybe something you could do is go to Dad with the problem and actually let him fix it.
Let him solve it.
Let him solve the problem.
Right?
Right.
Or you could give him a gift certificate to help him around the house.
Or tell him there's a day he doesn't
There's a
have
day
to
off.
do
Right.
anything around the
Right.
house. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Take him out to a ball game if you can,
Right. And there's this big rush, always to go out and eat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my ex-husband, that was not his deal. He didn't like the noise. There were a couple of times, and I think my sister-in-law is listening. She may have even been there and remembered this, that we went to a restaurant, and he was fine. He was hanging in there together with it until somebody started playing the piano and singing off-key, and he went, nope, that's it. We're leaving.
Time.
I'm gone. You guys can stay. I'm out of here.
I would think that would be from his years of being a musician.
No, that was my ex-husband.
Oh, your ex-husband.
He couldn't carry a
he
tune
couldn't
in a
carry-
bucket.
I can't carry a tune either. I can't. I can carry one physically. Give me a
Yeah.
notebook. That's about as well as I can carry it.
It's interesting because when my ex-husband passed away a couple of years ago, one of the things that I did with our the kids, and there were 5 of them. There were 2. I have a stepdaughter and a stepson, and then the 3 children that we have, and by this point, my stepdaughter had a couple of kids, and they're grown, and one of them's married. And what we did is we went to the beach, and we went to all the favorite places that he liked to go and eat, and we told stories about him.
Yeah.
And that was really, there wasn't any other kind of service that happened.
Yeah.
And what struck me about that is everybody's got their memories. We all have our memories about somebody. Maybe you write that letter to your dad while you still got him.
That's
And tell him what
great
you
point.
remember
Yeah.
about what you did. And
Well,
I was able,
yeah.
I had the wherewithal, something told me,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote my dad a letter when he hadn't gotten into full-blown dementia. But I wrote him that letter, what I wanted to say to him if I never got the chance.
Yeah, I was definitely blessed. I could tell that my dad wasn't doing well before he went
Yeah.
on his trip. So I knew when I was informed that he had this heart attack in Puerto Rico, I knew that this was it. And it is a blessing to be able to say that. So if you do have a hard time with your father, and maybe your dad's done something horrible. I've got some friends in my daughter's lives that their fathers were just there to create them. And we're not really, anybody can be a father, but you have to be a dad.
Yeah, that's different.
And these men were just there to get their wives pregnant. And I don't expect, and I know I'm hoping she's listening. I'm not going to use her name, but for those men and women that have toxic parents, I would hope that somebody would have stepped in to be that father figure. And
Right.
Sometimes you can forgive, but you don't have to necessarily be in their lives again.
Yeah, and forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean you're now buddies.
No,
like you're saying.
it doesn't.
It just means, you have enough compassion to say, you did the best you could, and I
Yeah.
forgive you so I can move on.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's for your own well-being because you
Right.
were not meant to carry that heavy
No.
energy. And so for people that have toxic fathers, hopefully you've got a grandfather or an uncle or a brother that has stepped into that father role, and you can write that person a letter
Yeah.
You know, and say, and maybe this will be the first time you've actually said, you know what, you made a big difference in my life, and I need to let you know that.
Well, the kind of thing that I told my dad in that letter, and I found it when we were cleaning some stuff out, and I saved it. I go back and
Yeah.
read it every once in a while. Was I told him a little secret that he didn't know. I purposely missed the bus, so I had to ride with him in the truck to school because there wasn't much time,
Right?
you
Right.
know. And I got the biggest hug from him after that because you know that's the kind of sharing I'm talking about. If you can do it, you know, just the
Right.
little things that mean so much. You remember him so much more.
Well, and those are the moments that don't cost anything. Like you're saying, it's the connection. So, for those of you, like we say, that have toxic fathers, just find somebody else in your life.
Right.
Because it's been my experience that when one parent, mom or dad, is taken out of the picture, like you said, somebody steps up.
That energy steps in somehow. In the
somebody
case of
steps
my
up.
dad, he had 3 older brothers.
Oh, so okay, so when he passed,
know,
you had
in the
that
case
right
of my
there.
ex-husband, his dad died when he was 7, but there was a
Mm-hmm.
whole family, and there were these old guys that were cousins that they'd take him out hunting.
Yeah,
so
so
that's
that-
you know, and maybe it doesn't step in fully like a dad, but pieces of it step
Yeah,
in.
and my dad was the oldest of 4, but the only boy, and so you know, and then I've got an aunt back east, but I had family friends step in, and to a certain extent, my brother absolutely stepped up and took over part of that dad role.
You know, and energetically, since we are about alternative healing and all the random things that happen in your life that move you along,
Synchronistic things that happen
there
in
we
your
go.
life.
I'll talk right about that. The thing about that is it's that energy that comes in that gives you that kind of honor and respect from
Right.
that viewpoint.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
because I went through. I can think of 3 relationships I went through sorting that all out because it wasn't modeled very well. He was a very compassionate man, but he didn't do much with me. He didn't, you know,
And do you attribute that to the fact that your sister was ill?
the whole situation,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and they just weren't available. They were gone. If they weren't working 8 to 6 together, they were playing their dance music at night on the weekends.
Yeah.
So, and they worked 6 days a week. So it's just a situation. Life, that's what life handed. And then, of course, as we've mentioned before, when you have a handicapped child in the family, and rightly so, that tends to be where the energy of the family goes
Right.
in order to make that function.
Which
So-
is interesting because I was raised with some challenging health issues. And my mother, again, like I said earlier, very strong woman, she specifically raised me so that I would not think of myself as handicapped. And I don't. I mean, you've known me long enough to know I don't.
I was surprised when you told me you had, had
Yeah.
struggles with epilepsy when you were a child because you just didn't give off that energy of.
It's taken a
I
lot
can
of
see where the challenges came in and made you who you are.
Right. Well, it's
You know?
it's a lot of processing because there were things as a child I just could not get. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't get some of the spatial relationships. The eye-hand coordination wasn't good. But my mom, she kept pressing on, and I kept doing different sports and doing different things. So she absolutely compensated and was determined that I was going to not, that the energy of the family was not going to be the handicap. Now, for me, that was advantageous, but I look at, some of the things in my family structure, and I think there was, maybe 1 or 2 of my siblings might have resented that. And I can't help that. That's their issue.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we got about 3 minutes left, and
Right.
I want to say thank you to my dad.
yeah. I
Thanks
miss
to my dad for his humor and his ingenuity. We always used to talk about Finnish engineering.
Right?
My brother showed me a barn door that he'd made a handle for. It actually was a door that had a square cut out of it, and you reached in and he'd taken an old fan belt off a truck, and you reached in and you unlooped this thing from the
Oh,
inside.
wow.
Yeah, Finnish engineering. But he was always interested in everything. He always
Yeah.
was open to looking at things. I never ever heard from him, I'm not looking at that. I heard that from my mother, but I never heard that from my dad.
My dad used to say, the day you stop learning is the day you die.
Yeah.
And he was always talking about how it's important to be involved in the community, to volunteer certain things, find something that you like, that resonates with you, and do it. And education was a big thing for him. So it was and my dad was just, he had a great sense of humor, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. He and Walter Matthau were separated at birth.
That's kind of scary. If I
It
put
is
that on
scary.
top of the Irish
My-
thing, it's
I
like,
know.
whoa.
Well, actually, my dad's nose was just a little bit smaller.
Okay.
But they looked. They really looked alike. But I miss my dad, and I love my dad, and I
Yeah.
want to wish Happy Father's Day
Happy Father's Day.
to all the dads out there, all the moms that have to act like dads, and to those of you that have lost your dads, somebody will step up and be the dad.
It really will.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
Next week we haven't. Let's see. Next week
We don't know.
we haven't figured it out yet. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, Synchronicity and Your Life.
Right.
And it will be the show after we're done. Will be on YouTube. Will be on UStream, and it should be on our Facebook page.
And we always post it on our Facebook page. It takes about an hour, I
Right.
think,
Right.
to get in there. So, and we're always creating every week. I just figured something else out yesterday. So we may have a situation where we'll have all the songs available.
Mm-hmm.
that,
And then your
apply.
website. Your website is.
shamanicsong.com, and also Lainey Risto Sings.
And I have still gotten mine. It's still under construction.
Yes,
so-
we've heard about this.
Yes,
I'm about ready
I
to
gotta
come
get
over
that-
and help you get it done.
Or I'll just come over to your house and build it from your
Okay,
place.
that's fine.
Yeah,
All right.
that'll work.
All right.
That'll work.
So everybody notice the strange things that happen in your life this week, and know that they're there for a reason, and they're probably there to push you in a certain direction if you choose.
And make sure to take the time to forgive yourself and forgive others. And make sure to follow your faith, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Have a great week, folks.
Yes.
Here I am, standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been